Welcome back to the News at 10. We have a developing story right now, breaking story just coming in. We hear there is a bomb explosion in Nigeria's capital city in Abuja. Members of the Boko Haram have detonated explosive devices at the Kuje market and the police station in Abuja. Of course, the story just coming in here on the News at 10, telling us that there has been a bomb explosion, and it is an improvised explosive device. We'll have details of that story in subsequent news broadcasts. But as of now, that is what we have. The Kuje market is under attack by Boko Haram members in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. We're going to take you straight to New York now. And joining me on the News at 10 is VOA's Margaret Bashar. Many thanks indeed for coming on the News at 10 again. Now, give us an update, call it a summary, if you will, of resolutions reached at the United Nations General Assembly today.
Well, Gimba, it was a busy week here, wasn't it? And today they mostly wrapped up the last of the speeches. And we heard from Sudan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. He took the opportunity to say that the International Criminal Court is very politicized, the Security Council is very politicized, and they're using it to attack African leaders. We heard from the Syrian foreign minister, who spoke about the Russian airstrikes this week, which have really dominated the UN meetings, and he predictably welcomed them because Moscow and Damascus had worked this out together. So there was a lot going on today, but it's been a busy week, especially with the Russian escalation in Syria, the talk of the migrant and refugee crisis that it's caused into Europe. And but, you know, African problems were not forgotten here. They may not have grabbed international headlines, but there was a big meeting on South Sudan about the implementation of the peace deal. There was a meeting, a very high-level meeting on the Central African Republic, where the Secretary General expressed his concern that the electoral process and peace process there could be derailed with the recent violence that country's experienced. There were meetings on Mali, DR Congo. So Africa has very much been front and center here. Interesting.
Now, tell me more about the inclusion policy or the inclusion call by the member states there at the General Assembly. What are they doing about that in terms of having more inclusiveness and cooperation to fight terrorism? And how is this supposed to shape out in the coming days or months?
Well, I don't think that there was a specific, timeline kind of plan put down here, but countering terrorism was certainly one of the major topics. President Obama chaired a meeting this week on it. The Russians have put forward a proposal in the UN Security Council about making sort of their own coalition that would include Iran and Syria, which are not in the other international coalition that Nigeria joined this week. So we'll have to see in the coming days how things shake out, really. The US and the Russian militaries had a meeting yesterday about their activities over Syria. So we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out on the global terrorist
interesting
landscape.
Tell me more, what's the stand of the United Nations when it comes to cross-border crimes?
The UN stand, I'm not sure exactly how you mean.
But of course, they're making efforts to try to stop criminals moving from one region to the other as part of a global effort to try to combat and stop people who loot monies from Africa, for example.
Specifically, this is a Security Council measure to stem the flow of foreign terrorist fighters, to stem the flow of money to foreign terrorist fighters, to cut off the flow of funds to them, and to share intelligence. And this was something that was agreed in the Security Council a year ago, and President Obama chaired this meeting this week to sort of take a little assessment of how it's going and to see where the gaps are and where things need to be improved. But I think that countries agree the more that become involved, the more countries that become involved, the better the intelligence sharing will become, and the better the cooperation and coordination can become. So that's something that they're looking at on a bigger, sort of growing every day. The coalition of countries is now 65 countries, with the addition of Nigeria, Tunisia, and Malaysia this week.
Margaret, always a nice pleasure talking to you. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you, Gimba.
Margaret Bashar of the Voice of America speaking to us on News at 10. Now, the Ekiti State government says that it has made a giant stride in its efforts to build an airport to be sited in Asho Oyegunle community. The airport is expected to occupy about 4,000 hectares of land, and the state government has mobilized tractors and other earth-moving equipment to prepare the place for construction. Ekiti State Commissioner for Works, who took journalists to the site today, says when completed, the airport will employ at least 1,000 indigents of the state.
What obviously is to boost the economy of the state. Investors will be able to fly in and out. I mean, if you look at it properly, industrialists, investors, people that need to do stuff in Ekiti, they don't really have time to be flying the road and coming from Ibadan, Lagos or Abuja for hours and hours. If they can just fly into Ekiti, 30 minutes from wherever they're here, do their business and out.
25 prisoners in Anambra State have been granted amnesty by the state government. The Anambra State Governor, Willie Obiano, announced the release of the inmates at the Awka prison in the state capital, as he also gave each of the freed inmates ₦1 million.
Spectators cheer Governor Willie Obiano giving arms to the less privileged as he makes his way through the AK Awka market. From the market, the next port of call for the governor is the Awka prison, where the governor is to perform the amnesty formality as part of his constitutional rights. Shortly after the governor's arrival, the Comptroller General of Prisons present the Inmates.
We have checked the character and behavior of all the inmates, and we can prove beyond reasonable doubt that they have actually been reformed.
Aside from granting them amnesty, the governor also announced ₦1 million gift for each of the freed inmates.
Based on the authority I have in this area, I hereby grant you that are here plus the other people, 25 of you, pardon. So here and now, you are a free man.
I am very happy to be among those that are released, that are pardoned today. In fact, my heart is full of joy. I cannot express it. Only God knows how I felt.
The atmosphere was filled with outbursts of emotion as the inmates shed tears of joy, after which they had a photo session with the governor.
To exercise his prerogative of mercy.
We're reporting to you now a breaking story in Nigeria's capital Abuja, where we understand that Boko Haram has laid siege and has attacked with improvised explosive devices the Kuje market and police station in Abuja. It's a developing story. We're following up on it. We have information that Boko Haram members have detonated improvised explosive devices at the Kuje market and the police station there. We're going to take you straight now to business stories, and N1m is standing by.
You first. First Bank.
Hello and welcome to Business News. Following the review of the cash reserve requirements at the last NPC meeting, a total of 740 billion naira was injected into financial institutions across Nigeria. Now, this figure was made public today at a briefing on the outcome of the Bankers Committee meeting, which held in Lagos. According to the committee, bank examiners are yet to ascertain the liquidity impact of the TSA implementation in the banking system. All the executives, however, noted that the banks have resolved to back the CBN on its reserves management strategies.
A lot of figures have been bandied around. Some say 1.23 trillion and so on. Well, the bank examiners are currently reconciling with banks on the figures they returned, but what is definite is that the 1.2 trillion being bandied around is not correct. Okay, so the actual figure, when they conclude the exercise, will be made known to you. But then we can confirm something again. The second confirmation is that the CRR that was released back to the banks on account of the TSA movement was 740 billion. So this is not figure from the sky now. This one is confirmed. We all agreed that irrespective of the actions of JP Morgan or any other party, we need to reserve and manage the foreign exchange reserve for Nigeria and for Nigerians, and that we cannot continue to play to the gallery, but we do what is best in the interest of Nigeria. So the Bankers Committee endorsed the activities. We also agreed that we would continue to supply forex, even though we'll continue to prioritize, but we'll prioritize and make effective supply available to the key segments of the economy, including manufacturing.
Nigeria's manufacturing activity as measured under the Purchasing Managers Index, or the PMI, shows a recovery at 51.6 reading in the month of September, and that's against 49.2 in the month of August. In a research report released today by FBN Capital, 3 of the 5 measured sub-indices were in the positive territory last month, while only 2 were neutral. The report also says that unless there is a strong structural and fiscal stimulus, Nigeria's manufacturing growth is set to remain poor. FBN Capital forecasts a little change in the third quarter industrial activity and a modest pickup in the current fourth quarter. Equities came through with a positive market breadth on Friday, but profit-taking on industrial and conglomerate stocks stalled the gains. Here's Bolaji Akinwale with more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The last trading session after the Independence holiday this week closed on profit-taking activities as the All-Share Index dipped by 2.02% on industrial stocks and conglomerate shares impacts. The transactions left the key benchmark index at 30,588.41 points, with the market capitalization settling lower at 10.51 trillion naira. Interestingly, the market breadth was positive with 22 advances to 17 decliners, and leading the gainers pack is Honeywell with 22 naira. Photo Oil is next with 4.76% appreciation, while Qtix turned over 7 kobo. Transnational Express is top on the decliners log with 7.44% loss. Dangote tailed Spain by about 5%, while N1m shared 5 kobo. Trading on 86 million shares of Axis Bank brought that stock ahead of Zenith Bank on the activity chart. With transactions on some 41 million shares, UBA took the third place. The closing bell rang when a total of 274.96 million shares were traded in 3,247 deals for a value of 3.12 billion naira. And that is on the Stock Market Report. I am Bolaji Akinwale.
Thanks a lot, Bolaji. Crude oil prices rose today as fighting in Syria grows wider. Now, traders, however, expect prices to remain unchanged as a hurricane witnessed in the U.S. may have less impact on oil facilities. U.S. crude was 50 cents higher at $45.24 a barrel, and this is after settling 35 cents lower in the previous session. The global benchmark Brent was 33 cents higher at $48.02 a barrel. Let's take a quick look at the global market figures for now. That wraps it up on Business News for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm N1m. The rest of the news at 10 continues with Gimba.
You first. First Bank.
And still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's Golden Eaglets begin final preparations for the Under-17 World Cup with a pre-tournament training camp in Argentina. That's on Sports News. Stay with us.